Falconry dogs. Here's some of my thoughts and some of my experiences on working with dogs as part of my falconry, and wider thoughts working with dogs for all kinds of falconry, including all the sort of stuff I've never been involved with. But first, if you're thinking of having a falconry dog, I've got to tell you, for me, they're way more than a tool in a toolbox. They're not pets, they're family. I don't know. Personally, I don't think you should have a dog unless it's going to be part of your family, whether it lives outside when you're not there or not. Even ferrets kind of get a bad rap a lot of the time. They get to work and be active all winter in good hands, but I can spend the whole 6 months of summer in quite small enclosures. I've done it, and we've all done it, I guess. But dogs, dogs are something special. We're not going to catch pipits and larks. What we will get is a bit of recall. So some thoughts on falconry dogs. That's it, I know where she is. Some thoughts on falconry dogs. But the number one thing is, if you don't want a dog, there's a hare now, just got the dog's chasing because I'm not on the whistle. Now the hawk's gone after a bloody pipit. If you don't want a dog, don't get a dog. And if you do want a dog, I think you've got to get a dog you want, of a breed you want, more than the breed to do the job, because it's going to be with you for sort of 10 years. It's part of your family, so a lot to weigh up and think about. Anyway, I've just messed up talking to you. Like, I'll get my bird back. I'll talk to you some more in a minute. Bear in mind, for most falconers, the dog wants to be walking to heel on the right, the bird's carried on the left. It doesn't want to see the dog sort of behind it, underneath it. It will make it unsettled a lot of the time. So opposite to most dog training. Now, dogs can work quite well into their good old age to a degree, depending on the work, I guess. But something else to think about is, when your dog's too old to work as much as you want, it might still have another 2 or 3 or more years left in it to live. But you've got to be bringing another dog on before it's passed away. So at some point, unlike a tool, you've got a new pup coming along, or a new dog you're working, but now you've got 2 dogs, because you've got a dog that's kind of retired from most of its active duty. It still needs, looking after, possibly most expensive time of its life, even with vet's bills and so on. A lot to think about, for sure. So a dog can range from not needed, massively helpful, or probably can't practice this kind of falconry without a dog. So when it comes to the kind of dog, should you use one of these more sort of long-term breeds, these gundog breeds that have transferred to falconry? So of course you don't need the retrieving aspect of a spaniel or a pointer, but that nose and that drive, and also that ingrained way of working, which isn't just its working in its senses and flushing game. It's the responsiveness to you and the whistle that can make a big difference with those breeds compared to just any old dog that you've got in your house. Can you use just any old dog you've got in your house? We'll come to that in a bit. If you're working something like a hawk, a goshawk, harrisawk, red-tailed hawk, and you're trying to flush game from cover, and we're not talking your ferrets ferreting, we're talking game already lying out, or lying out hidden in cover, whether it's rabbits or whether it's game birds, a pointer and a spaniel really, really, really help your falconry, but in different ways. I tend to think of a spaniel as a dog that's going to be a bit of an ankle biter. It's going to work quite close to you and flush game, shotgun style. Maybe you've got your goshawk, your flying game birds. Your spaniel's working cover very near to you. Something's going to flush, the goshawk or whatever will be away. I work with a German short-haired pointer, and the pointer gives you legs, it gives you distance work, and covers more ground faster. Now, I don't mean I'm sure a spaniel, if it had its step-ometer on, probably does a similar amount of steps, I don't know, in a closer area. But my pointer will work at hundreds of yards. Critically, these breeds work so well on a whistle, certainly if they're from good lines, whether it's hunting, field trials, whatever. It's almost ingrained into them. You almost, basic training, kind of almost train themselves to a degree. So all I need is peep, one peep, sit. That's anywhere, at any distance. Whether she can see me or not, I expect her to hear that one peep and stop and sit. You'd never need to say to a dog, sit and stay. That's just stupid, because if it's sitting, it has to be staying, doesn't it? So if you've got a sit or a down command, it's going to be stopped, and it should stay there until you give it a command to move on. Peep, peep for my dog, 2 peeps, peep, peep. If you're running right, peep, peep, you turn around and you'll run left, and so on. That means I can work the dog zigzagging, quartering like a giant barn owl across a field up to hundreds of yards away. When you're working something like a golden eagle, certainly if the dog's working downwind to some degree, remember, it's not really using its nose for me, it's just using itself by being there, quartering the fields to bump up hares. That eagle can cover hundreds of yards down a hill or downwind or crosswind. You don't need to be working right at your feet. Equally, 3 peeps, peep, 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 come on back, stop what you're doing, just get back here now. So very few commands needed. I don't need the dog to retrieve, I don't want the dog to retrieve. And just a dog I can command faultlessly. Pointer for me at distance works great. A spaniel working tight cover that you're never going to want to push your legs through. A good spaniel will be in there, equally still very obedient on commands. So you've got your gundog breeds, and I'm just saying pointers and spaniels covering an awful lot. A friend of mine's just wrote an article in, yes, what's it in? Shooting Times, I think, see if you can get a copy, about working Clumber Spaniels with his Harris Hawks, a breed, he's probably one of the only people that works them with his hawks. Very, very out of fashion, I guess that is a word with dogs, because dogs do have fashionable statuses, whether working or pet, for sure. So something more unusual there, for sure. Can you work other dogs? Remember, these dogs are very much gun dogs that are, their purpose works so well for falconry as well. German wirehead pointers have really got a bit of a name, certainly going back even decades now, have been really good falconry dogs. But can you work other dogs that are kind of not in the realms of the gun dog being transferred over to falconry? So my first dog was a lurcher. It was a, I don't know, whippet, greyhound, Bedlington, collie, but it was lurcher to lurcher. That was what was in it. All intents and purposes, it looked like a medium-sized black greyhound. I was already a falconer, and I got this dog. Dog was used or employed for lamping, a bit of ferreting and daytime rabbiting, because in those days you could walk grassy fields and rabbits would be out, believe it or not. Certainly don't see that much nowadays. And then I got a goshawk, so I'd already got different birds. I'd already had birds, mostly owls, and I sort of dabbled with a red tail. And I got a goshawk from a breeder, and Floyd was my falconry dog. Interestingly, I used to fly the goshawk down and up a hill to a big tree for exercise. So if I wasn't going to have time to go out hunting, I flew it 6 days a week for 6 months of the year. I was young, and sometimes I just didn't have time to do a lot of hunting. So I'd take it out for exercise, and I'd fly it up and down this hill, back it up to a big tree. So it's just doing long distance recalls backwards and forwards. And the dog would absolutely love to chase the goshawk. It wasn't chasing it, but run with the goshawk, and he would push his head up under her tummy and push her up as she flew. No animosity between them. The dog could do God knows how many up and down runs, and so would the hawk, and they got on fine. Being a lurcher, of course, you've got a dog that's designed to chase, and a sight hound, so very much like a bird of prey, it's using its eyesight and its speed to chase game. It didn't really matter. He still had a good nose. He still found a lot of red-legged partridge and pheasants and rabbits back then by pushing his way through the grassy fields, sniffing them out. But of course, he would give chase. I only used to use a voice whistle. I never used to know anything about really using a dog whistle. So if the dog put up a pheasant or partridge,
the goshawk would give chase, and so would the dog. If anything was going to be caught, it would of course be by the hawk because it's faster, but they'd work together in so much as they both chase the same thing, not as a team. Alcy! I need a whistle, I can't do it all, can I? One hand with this, one hand with this. So the dog would work. It would find game by being a dog and having a nose, and a sight hound. It would find game for the hawk. The hawk knew that. The hawk watched the dog. But the dog was really total. I know they all do, but the dog was totally working for itself, so it could find game that it could chase, and it got praised when the dog was working on its own for catching stuff, and obviously to retrieve a rabbit and so on. But the dog would never attack the hawk. So let's say the hawk chased a cock pheasant all the way across the fields, caught it as it made into a hedge. The dog would soon arrive, but there wouldn't be any fighting. The dog wouldn't try and steal the pheasant, or there'd be no aggression. They knew their place, and the dog would just wait for me. So even a dog that's really designed to do totally its own hunting to catch stuff can still work with your bird of prey. If you've got lurchers, as long as they get on okay, it can still do the job, because of course what the dog finds, generally if it runs or flies, the hawk's going to get there first because it too flies. My next dog, so Floyd, had Floyd for a long time. He died at about 13 and a half years old of old age, bless him. And then came along a Bedlington Terrier called Fen. Kennel Club registered. People often say, well, if you get a Kennel Club registered dog or anything from show lines, blah, 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 you know, if you're going to get a terrier, only get it from a working terrier guy. Well, I can tell you now, this terrier, he did come from a dirty old farm somewhere, strangely, but he had mega nose. And unlike my previous Lakeland Terrier of yesteryear, which was a typical terrier, Bedlingtons, I don't know, think of them a little bit more like a woolly whippet, maybe. They've got legs, they can move, they've got a great sense of smell, so really good at bushing and pushing through cover and even through rapeseed. They've got a good sense of smell. They're quite a biddable dog. Train them from a pup. Fen was great. Again, mouth whistles only, but he knew sit and he knew to come back and so on. So basic commands, I could work him through the field at a little bit of distance. He wouldn't be allowed to roam ahead as far as Elsie does, but he would work at some distance. He would work cover. Look at Pete Freebird of Reason. He works and has done for a long time. A little Patterdale Terrier, great little bushing dog. As long as they know and they know they get on okay, even a terrier can be a great dog. So Fen was great. He really did work so well with the goshawk I was flying at the time. Even from his first season, bless him, he did a bit of work. But when I started flying a golden eagle, my wife said, "You are not taking that boy out with that eagle." I said, "Oh, it'll be okay, they'd know each other." And she rightly pointed out, really, Bedlington's woolly coat, when it's soaking wet from the oilseed rape, they change shape. They become a skinny rat dog, darker in colour, totally different, smaller looking animal. And I think she's right. There's an easy chance that eagle could have mistaken him for something else, even though it probably would have worked okay with him. Mistaken identity, massive opportunity. But of course, again, if you're working with an eagle, it does grab your dog. Bigger dog's better off. And my eagles took hold of Elsie twice at least, both times round the head with both feet, both times absolutely no harm done. Didn't sound too good at the time, and the dog was willing to work, wanted to work straight away. If it had been a Bedlington Terrier, probably would have been dead by the time I got there. So there's things like that to think about. Having said that, there's guys working with sausage dogs out in the States with golden eagles flying over them. So I think they're working with like sagebrush, thick cover, little sausage dogs running ahead. An eagle knows that. Just like your female goshawk learns quite quickly that a ferret isn't on a menu, it's a helper.
So getting Elsie the pointer was a revelation. So I'd work with non-falconry dogs or non-gun dogs, dogs both designed to hunt and work in their own right, and then all of a sudden a gun dog. Now, the reason gun dogs are so good in falconry is because if you imagine your hawk is a shotgun, the dog's doing a lot of that work that the shooter has bred them to do. Very similar, apart from the retrieve, of course.
it is a different kind of animal. It really is. So you've got a dog they're just bred. Dogs are bred for a purpose. It is a step up. Their obedience and their listening and their intelligence to work on whistle commands at distance, their drive to find a point or flush or or flush game is another level. It just is. But if you really don't like spaniels, or you really don't like pointers, or you or your wife are so allergic to dogs, it's just not an option in the house or around the house or on your clothes. Maybe something like a Bedlington Terrier. God, I don't know. Even a big poodle, a standard poodle, is that what they're called? Or maybe a Labradoodle. Something that's not absolutely designed and the best at the job, but something that's hypoallergenic, you're not going to get any allergens off its fur, is going to be way better than nothing at all, as in sort of you're 80% there. So it doesn't have to be a dog, a really well bred, from really good lines, pointer like Alcy. Many dogs will do. If you like Martin Hollinshead's books, did a lot of books about Harris hawks and hunting ground game and golden eagles. One of the dogs he mentions that he worked closely with his Harris hawk was a collie, a sheepdog, if you like, border collie. Really, really intelligent, really loyal, really wanting to please, loads of stamina, a completely thinking outside the box kind of dog that he found was a brilliant dog to have working with his hawks. Any dog that's got some sort of prey drive and is obedient off the lead, and it doesn't have to do tricks or know 50 different commands. Basic obedience, get on, come back, stop, left, right. It doesn't even have to have hardly anything more than that, as long as it's obedient. You don't want a dog that's going to keep chasing on after you've blown a stop whistle, chasing quarry. Ideally, well, Lurcher did, no problem. Generally, you can end up losing your dog. A Lurcher as your companion for hunting hares is going to chase those hares, and it might chase them ways away. It might go over roads and far away and become a problem. You need a dog that you can stop and get back under whatever situations. Remember, it isn't really the dog's job to be chasing the stuff. It's your hawk's job or your eagle's job or whatever, falcons to do that. But you can think outside the box with just those basic needs. The only thing I will say, if you want a dog to do the job really well, there are certain breeds that in general will be better for the job. But don't get yourself a pointer if you don't want a pointer. For example, they will drive you insane around the house unless you're one of the freaky people that just like those sort of dogs. Bedlington Terriers, for example, Lurchers, for example, pretty much become scatter cushions when they're at home. They'll curl up, and believe it or not, for all their stamina and energy, most of them, they'll be like a sleeping cat or a cushion around the house, no problem at all. Bedlingtons for sure, but still have the stamina to work. Some of these highly bred dogs for the purpose, like a pointer, or certainly my pointer, and it is not alone, are ADHD, hyperactive, and they will drive you nuts, because although they are supremely good at their job of work, they are really irritating, hyperactive pets when they're at home. Think about it. Don't get a dog just for your falconry. And really, really, really importantly, probably one of the most important things you need to take from this video is, and I've tried it, others have, don't get a dog and a bird of the year and think you're going to train them both together. You'll get frustrated. You won't like working a dog. You won't like falconry. It is really hard. Train your dog and train your hawk separately. And in the perfect world, by far, have a dog for at least a year, train to the basic level, ready to work before you get that young hawk and you start on the falconry journey. get your dog grounded first. Don't try and train them both together from youngsters. Just as much as don't get 2 dogs when it's your first sort of dog. Don't get 2 birds of prey when you just get into falconry. Think about what you're doing. Use a lot of common sense. Don't get a dog if you don't want a dog, and don't get a breed of dog you don't particularly like. There's no point. It's stupid. You're better off getting a dog you're going to really love because they're family members. Is there any point of having a dog in falconry? Yes, very much so. Does it depend on the kind of falconry? It's like the M1 here, I'm in a country lane. Does it depend on the kind of falconry you practice? How much or how little you need a dog? Absolutely. Are some dogs better for falconry dogs than others? Absolutely. Do you need something that's sort of as a gun dog or a mainstream sort of falconry dog for your falconry? No, you don't. I've done a lot of falconry without a dog. As soon as you practice falconry with a dog, you will notice the amount of game you can find is extremely high compared to if you're just on your own, maybe with or without a stick to beat cover. The dog's ability to get to places you can't go or really don't want to go, thorny scrub, or just their nose, it really does find game that you would literally walk over or walk past. So why would you need a dog, or rather where would you need a dog, or where would a dog help in terms of falconry? So I would think, I have no knowledge of this, only watching friends, long-wing falconry from waiting on a moorland, I would think would be extremely difficult if you didn't have a good dog designed for that job. So if you're going to take up long winging, moorland waiting on style flying, I think you'd already accept that you're going to be working with your or someone else's dogs for sure. Goshawks, because you are able to fly game birds as absolute quarry, something they're designed to catch, a dog will make so much difference, it's ridiculous. If you have got ground just teeming with game, you can still do that without a dog. But the dog's ability not just to find and flush game, but if it's a pointer, to go on point and give you a warning there's something there, get yourself set up in position maybe, will make a massive difference to not just finding game, but the bag size for sure. Golden eagles or open ground hare hunting, a dog will help. It's helped me having a pointer that will range out a good distance ahead, hundreds of yards ahead, but still working to the whistle. Massive difference. Not so much because the pointer points the hares and easily finds them and then goes on to point, because it hardly ever does. They don't give off much scent, and they often won't move unless the dog literally walks over them. But what the dog gives you is an extra pair of legs, helping to flush hares by bumping them up. But not just an extra pair of human legs. A pointer on a whistle will zigzag across the field, left and right, up to hundreds of yards ahead, which is perfectly fine for flying a golden eagle. But you could do that nowadays with the common availability of thermal scanners. You could find probably more hares on the right land without a dog, but with a thermal scanner, scope, without the need to look after a dog, have a dog around, the running costs of a dog. So for hare hawking on open land, there's an absolute alternative to a dog that's completely different to having a dog that, to be honest, under a lot of conditions, will find you more hares, and also without disturbing the land, anything like you and your dog walking over it. So there are options in some ways to having a dog. In other ways, there's not a viable option. Beating along cover with a stick with your goshawk isn't even close to working, say, a spaniel in that close cover with your goshawk, and the amount of game you'll find. So dogs have a massive place in falconry,